I am Jordan Rushworth, host of the Athlete Sitdown with Sport Endorse, where we chat to inspiring athletes to hear their unique journey into the world of sports. Sport Endorse are a global leader in connecting brands with the ideal athlete to forge powerful partnerships and increase exposure for both sides alike. With access to over 5,000 athletes across 90 different disciplines, Sport Endorse is your go-to platform to find a perfect athlete fit for your social media campaign, brand ambassador role, or keynote speaking engagement. Welcome to the 9th and final episode of the Athlete Sitdown, brought to you by Sport Endorse. This will be a different episode as there will be no guests joining us today. That is because we have some news to share with you all. But before I get into that, I want to take this opportunity to reflect on some of my highlights from this season, the guests I've had the pleasure to talk to, and my takeaways from these conversations. So my main takeaway from season 1 of the Athlete Sitdown was that Olympians get paid per medal. I found this out during my research for the Sophie McKenna podcast. I believe that was number 2. And I have some stats on those here. So the US athletes get $37,500 per gold, whereas the likes of Hong Kong pay around $750,000 per gold. So they won 2 golds, both in fencing. 15 of the 206 countries competing pay over $100,000 to athletes who win a gold medal. And interestingly, Team GB athletes are instead supported through funding depending on their podium potential. So those who have a definite shot at a medal can receive up to £28,000 in funding each year, which contributes to their living and sporting costs. So this funding is actually called the Athlete Performance Awards, but it is also stipulated that this does not support athletes that are considered professional, as they can operate independently through other income streams such as endorsement. It must also be said that British Athletics, the governing body for the nation's track and field team, does reportedly pay out medal bonuses independent of the government. And I think that leads on quite nicely to sort of the next topic that I want to cover, which is funding, and sort of shows how well funded British athletics are in comparison to some of the other governing bodies, as they can afford to sort of pay out per medal. So my second takeaway, funding, and how most athletes struggle with funding. Sophie McKenna, Yona Wisdom-Knight, Lauren Davey all mentioned this season. Lauren Davey's funding was reduced and she was told to cycle to work, and had worked out that it costs her around £10,000 to chase her dreams per year. And speaking to these athletes, it seems that the funding system may be flawed, so I decided to delve a little deeper. And as UK sport's current funding model is focused on winning medals through the Athlete Performance Awards, as I mentioned earlier, the sports with the highest chances of securing medals, such as athletics, sailing, rowing, and cycling, receive the lion's share of financial support. They have opted a medal-first approach, which rips funding from those that fail. This in turn creates a downward spiral on sports like shot put, in which Team GB hasn't medalled at, since the Olympics in 1984. And as they keep getting reduced funding, this in turn means they get less athletes, so less funding, so less athletes, and the cycle continues. So it is no surprise that Sophie and many other athletes have spoken to mention funding. And this research has also given me more perspective on how important brand sponsorships are for athletes, and why Sport Endorse is imperative for them, and now has over 5,000 athletes across 91 different disciplines worldwide, and connects them with brands that are looking for more exposure in specific areas. And it's great seeing both parties benefit.
Are you a brand seeking an influencer to enhance trust and visibility with your audience? Or are you an elite athlete eager to feature in advertisements or promote products on social media? We're a unique platform connecting top-tier athletes with brands for impactful partnerships in your area. For brand managers, we simplify dealings with athletes and celebrities. For athletes, we offer opportunities to collaborate with like-minded brands. With a strong global community, Sport Endorse is your gateway to success. www.sportendorse.com, where brands can book a free demo on the platform, while athletes can sign up for free.
My third takeaway stems from the fact that every single one of the athletes I've spoken to has blown me away with their pure determination to succeed in their sport. Firstly, financially, as many of them have to work multiple jobs on top of training to fund their sporting goals. A prime example being Lauren Davey, who is a Welsh heptathlete, who is training to be a doctor and currently teaches and works other jobs on the side. Sophie McKenna is also a prison officer, whilst being the best female shot putter in Team GB, and actually stated that being a prison officer was a nice release from training all day. Emma Considine is a mother, a teacher, and is still an Irish rugby player. Neil Ecclesley continued to fight at the Olympics despite having been bitten 2 days prior. And I think this all delves down to every single one of them loves what they do. They all seem to want to continue doing what they do after. Yona wants to open diving schools in Jamaica to ensure he is not the first and last diver for his nation. Sophie wants to coach shot put and try and grow that as a sport in the UK. And a lot of them continue to give back to the youth, whether that be through school talks like Vanessa Ruck, or again, teaching like Lauren. Lastly, I want to touch on personal sacrifices, injuries, and the fact that none of the athletes I've spoken to have had any easy wins. Vanessa Ruck had a terrible accident when she was 18 and fought her way back and found her passion for motorbikes, and now completes some of the hardest races in the world. In fact, one of my favourite stories from these podcasts was her breaking down in the Dakar Rally and having to create a fire from scratch and wait throughout the night for a rescue team. Sophie McKenna competed in the Olympics, although there was loose bone fragments in her elbow. She needed surgery but decided to wait as it was her life goal to compete at an Olympic Games. Chris Bright has battled with diabetes to become an international futsal player, and the list continues. And I think, although I am reflecting on talks with 8 athletes, I have a feeling that I could have spoken with hundreds and the similarities between the athletes still would have been the same. So without further ado, the news that I wanted to share with you all is that we are ending the Athlete Sitdown. But transitioning into our new podcast, Journeys. The main reason being is because we felt the Athlete Sitdown restricted us from topics and people that are imperative to the sporting industry. And although we love our discussions with athletes and we will continue to do these, ultimately we think we can make our podcast better and delve into different topics in the sporting industry, whether that's talking to coaches, psychologists, the people in charge of funding for athletes, the head of tennis, whoever it may be. And I want your help to do that. Not only do I want to know who you want on our podcast, but also what questions you want us to ask. So I am very excited for this transition into Journeys. We already have coaches lined up, Olympic medal winners from Paris, and I think you'll enjoy the changes we will be making. So for now, it is goodbye to the Athlete Sitdown, but we'll be back with Journeys, and I hope you'll join me there. Thank you for watching the Athlete Sitdown, brought to you by Sport Endorse. To book any of our athletes featured on our podcast, contact us via our website, www.sportendorse.com, or via our email, hello@sportendorse.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming episodes.